Do you like barbarians? Do you like doing melee damage in your RPGs? Do you like building characters around unconventional weapons in your RPGs? Okay, fine. Do you at least enjoy listening while some nerdy guy lulls you to sleep with some D&D infused ASMR? Well, if any of those things are true, then you are going to enjoy today's build. Welcome to D4. Hey everybody, so here at D4, each week I take a deep dive into character builds for my favorite role-playing games. I like to crunch numbers about them, theorycraft about them, not so that I can tell you the right way or the best way to play a character, but to explore one potential way to build something in the hopes of creating a character that's both really fun, but also really powerful to play. So if you also enjoy creating characters for your favorite role-playing games, or if you really enjoy theory crafting, or if you're just looking for tips or ideas on how to build something that you're thinking about playing, then welcome home. This is where you belong, and I'm so glad you're here, so thanks for being here. My name's Colby. Right, so since the 2024 D&D 5e rules have come out, I have done some heavy weapons builds, a ranged weapon user, and a handful of 2-weapon fighters, but there's a weapon setup that I have not built around yet. Any guesses? No, not a sword and shield build. I did that with the World Tree Barbarian tank. To be fair, that wasn't really built for damage. And I do want to do like a more sort of intentional sword and board kind of build. It's on my to-do list, but no, I'm talking about the double-bladed scimitar. I think of all the weapons available to us in D&D 5e, conceptually, the double-bladed scimitar is perhaps my favorite of all of them. It's just so cool. Come on, a staff that basically has a sword blade on each end that you can twirl and spin like a bow staff, but that slices and dices. Unfortunately, there are problems with the weapon. I outlined them way back at the beginning of my channel in what I called a short that you can watch right there if you're interested. But in a nutshell, they require 2 hands to use, but don't get to benefit from the Great Weapon Master feat. That's kind of the biggest problem, right? For this reason, I tend to think that they're maybe best in the hands of rogues, as long as you can afford to take the Revenant Blade feat so that they can be finesse weapons. If I'm not mistaken, the only builds that I've ever done for the double-bladed scimitar in the past have been rogue builds, I think. Like the rogue half of the Wolf and Coyote, for example. That was a 2-build video, like 2-character build. Something I haven't done for a long time, actually. Anyways, to make matters worse for the double-bladed scimitar, or maybe the DBS, I should start calling it, that's a little less wordy, they're not even included in the 2024 Player's Handbook, which means that there's no weapon mastery associated with them. So should we even bother trying to use them with a 2024 rules build? I think I'd still like to, yeah, because there's one thing in the 2024 Player's Handbook that, when coupled with the DBS, probably makes them better than ever. It's actually, ironically maybe, something that by itself kind of sucks. I mean, if I asked you, what would you say is the worst fighting style in all of D&D 5e for damage purposes? If you said great weapon fighting, I think you're probably right. And I think it kind of got worse with the 2024 rules. It used to let you re-roll 1s and 2s for the damage dice of weapons that you were wielding with 2 hands. Now it just says that 1s and 2s become 3s. And while I appreciate that it at least prevents us from just re-rolling another 1 or a 2, which feels super bad, it also means that you don't ever get a chance to turn those 1s and 2s into something decent like 5s or 6s, or if you've got a great axe, a 12, right? Ugh. But what's interesting here with the new version of the fighting style is that the smaller the die you roll for the weapon, the better this fighting style becomes, right? Turning a 1 or 2 into a 3 on a great axe's D12 is pretty poopy. But on a D4, where 1s and 2s represent half of the dice you might roll, and a 3 is actually better than average, it's a little better. When you attack with a double-bladed scimitar, Your attack actions are made with one end that do 2d4 damage, and then, yes, there's a nice built-in bonus action attack with them as well that you make with the other end for 1d4, right? It's kind of like the Polearm Master's butt action, but you don't need to take a feat for it. And the average damage of 2d4 when 1s and 2s automatically become 3s goes from 5 damage to 6.5 damage. I appreciate that that's not anything incredible, but at least it gets you more into the range of like the dueling fighting style, and it benefits our bonus action attack a little too. What interests me most about all of this isn't really so much the huge mathematical advantage. It's more like the feel of it. Just knowing that when you roll damage for your attack, you'll always be in the upper half of what's possible just feels really awesome to me. I like things that are reliable. You guys know this about me. And so what I'm kind of super interested in is building something that might not necessarily have the highest ceiling, but that at the very least has a nice high floor, right? If we could couple the double-bladed scimitar together with the great weapon fighting style, and maybe find a couple of other ways to just add some flat, guaranteed damage to every hit, it might make for a build that feels like you're just always going to be fairly decent damage-wise every round, and are maybe a little less at the mercy of the dice. And as much as I love rolling dice, that sounds kind of great. So let's build around it and see how it compares to other sustained damage builds, shall we? And so I proudly present D&D episode 190, the Berserker Barbarian, the Whirling Dervish, the Double-Bladed Barbarian, the Smart Hulk, Hulk slash? How about let's just go with the Refined Barbarian. Huge thanks to my good friend Randall Hampton for the fantastic artwork that he put together for this build. He does this every week. If you would be interested in following him to check out the other stuff that he's done, or maybe even reaching out to see if you can commission him to do some art for your character or even your entire party, I'll put links in the video description as always on how to do so. Hey guys, so I'm getting ready to take a nap. Got my Star Wars jammies on, so I figured that this would be the perfect time to tell you about the awesomeness that is my Helix mattress that I'm about to be sleeping on, since they are the sponsor for the video this week. And I figured I might as well hold the mic so that I can really lean into the whole ASMR experience. So here's some real talk. I freaking love this mattress. No lie, it is the best mattress I've ever owned. I've mentioned before, I used to wake up every morning with like a lower back pain. I was stiff, I was sore. Ever since I've been sleeping on this mattress, I don't have that problem anymore. It helps me stay cool at night, and it is deliciously comfortable. And, you know, I'm fairly convinced that one of the main reasons that I love it so much is because it's kind of specially tailored for me and how I sleep. With Helix, before you even order a mattress, they have you take a sleep quiz to figure out your body type, your sleep preferences, so that you can get the perfect mattress for you. I'm a side sleeper. I tend to prefer a little bit of a softer mattress. I sleep kind of hot. So I took the test before I ordered my mattress and got matched up with the Sunset Luxe with a Outtakes cooling cover. But there are 20 unique mattresses that they offer, including the Luxe and the Ultra Premium Elite collections. There's the Helix Plus for big and tall builds, and even Helix Kids, designed for, well, kids. So I've got a special promo that's going on in the month of November here. Right now, Helix is having a Black Friday sale, but they're running it for the whole month. Hooray! Until the end of the month, you can get 25% off any order on their website. That's everything. Plus, you get 2 free pillows with every order. And if you order a Luxe or Elite mattress, they are even throwing in a free bedding bundle. That's the best promo they've ever had me advertise for anyways. It's a great deal. And as always, they have a 100-night sleep trial. So if you're thinking about it, order one. You get more than 3 months to test it out, see if you like it. If you don't, just send it back. You'll get a full refund. What do you have to lose? Their mattresses have a 10-year warranty, and they even have financing and flexible payment options available if you need them, should you decide to keep it, which I'm pretty sure you will. Shipping is free in the US. It comes delivered right to your door in a box. You just open the box, unroll the mattress. Setup is super easy. Anyways, I'm putting a link in the video description and in the pinned comment. If you want to check them out, I would appreciate it if you would click those links so they know I sent you. And yeah, huge thanks to Helix Sleep. Not only for sponsoring the video, but for honestly giving me like some of the best sleep of my life. Okay, you guys jump back into the build with a less comfy version of me. I'm going to sleep. Night night. All right. At level 1, for our starting class, no big surprise if you've been listening thus far. I mean, I debated a lot about which class might make the best DBS user. Is it the fighter, the paladin, the barbarian? I think we want to primarily go barbarian here. Yes, I think rogues can make good use of the DBS too, if you get the Revenant Blade feat. And sure, Pact of the Blade warlocks and others can make an argument for being good with the double-bladed scimitar as well, but in a build focused on trying to just do really solid, reliable damage, no matter what you might be rolling, it's hard to beat easy advantage and rage bonus damage, right? That said, as I think we illustrated fairly well in the new 2024 baseline build, which I seriously need to rename to like the best truly sustained damage build or something, Barbarian is kind of sustained damage dealing leader if you're only playing the game up through tier 2 or like level 10, right? But from level 11 on, yeah, fighters kind of take a lead with that extra attack. Still, I like to build my characters to be good throughout their career, so sure. If you are playing this character starting at level 11 or beyond, you might want to go mostly fighter. We are going to start barbarian and be mostly barbarian, and we're not going to be sad about it because barbarians do scale better than ever. Admittedly, that bar was really low in 2014, and they bring a lot of great stuff to the table aside from just damage, especially in the survivability department. Anyways, as for our species, I'm gonna say let's go elf, but not for the reasons I usually go elf. Today it's got nothing to do with elven accuracy, because elven accuracy does not benefit from strength-based attacks, right? But also, I won't have to be elf until very late game for this build. So if you aren't playing the character into tier 4, or sure, if you'd rather just be a different species, then fine, pick something else. Assuming you go elf with me though, feel free to go drow, high, or wood elf. All of them get a nice little spell selection. I'm partial to high elf these days for the greater cantrip versatility and the Misty Step spell, but since we'll be raging in combat most of the time, feel free to take whatever you think will give you the best out-of-combat utility, or whatever best matches your character concept. As for our background, I'm going to say, take an old or custom background if you can, but if you can't, I'd say take farmer here, which gives me the feat I most want and the ability score increases I need. As for that origin feat, I'd really like to take tough. 2 extra hit points per level is great on any character, but it's best on barbarians because barbarians just get so much out of their hit points, right? They're worth almost twice as much to us as they are to most classes and builds, as we'll discuss in a sec. So yeah, I love tough here. And actually, for that same reason, I'd be just as tempted to go dwarf for my species if you didn't want to go elf, if you weren't playing into late game, so that I can get 1 more hit point per level. But since I'm building for damage, sure, I'll stick with elf. As for our ability scores, I'm assuming the point buy method as always and say, let's grab a 15 strength and take a +2 there, a 15 constitution and a +1 there, and then a 15 dexterity. That 15 dexterity is also a very late game play, so feel free to keep it at 14 and get like your wisdom to at least 10 if you want instead. As for our equipment, it's a little tricky. We want both a double-bladed scimitar and scale mail. However, we've got a little problem. Your class plus your background is only going to give you 125 gold, but a double-bladed scimitar costs 100 gold and scale mail costs 75. So you might need to borrow some money from a friend here to close that gap. Here's hoping you've got a monk in your party. If you can't do this, we should be okay to skip on the armor for a level or 2 until you have the money, because as a barbarian 1, we get unarmored defense. And that means if we're unarmored, our AC equals 10 plus our constitution plus our dexterity, which means we'd have a 15 right now, even naked. Only 1 less than if we had scale mail. So hopefully you'll be able to get enough gold to buy that scale mail before too long. Or, I mean, sure, half plate eventually, right? And also as a barbarian, I care a little bit less about my armor class because I also get Rage at level 1, which is more important for our survivability than our AC is, right? Especially once we start recklessly attacking. We have 2 rages per day. We gain more with Barbarian level, and blessedly regain 1 use of it every short rest. Now, that is a massive quality of life improvement that I love. Thank you, wizards. We activate it as a bonus action. It lasts for 1 minute, so long as we make an attack, force a saving throw, or use our bonus action to extend it. Another nice little benefit from 2024. While active, it lets us do 2 more damage to all strength-based attacks we make, gives us advantage on strength checks and saves, and gives us resistance to all bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. In 2014, that was the vast majority of damage that we would be subjected to at most tables and most fights, and I assume that it will be the same in 2024, but we'll know for sure when the new monster manual comes out in 2025. We also, as a Barbarian 1, now get Weapon Mastery. Dang it. So yeah, I guess I'm just going to say PYF here, pick your favorites, because alas, like I've said, DBSs don't officially have a Weapon Mastery property yet. Hopefully they'll be officially adding them to the 2024 rules in an upcoming book. That said, I have to believe that most reasonable DMs would allow a Weapon Mastery to be assigned to the DBS. So let me know which one you think they should get in the comments. I mean, regular scimitars have Nick, so that doesn't work here. I don't think Vex makes the most sense since most Vex weapons are piercing, but maybe Greys, like the Glaive and the Greatsword, those weapons feel like the closest to me in weapon type, I think, so giving them the same weapon mastery feels like the right move to me, but yeah, let me know if you feel otherwise, or if you agree too, I suppose. All right, before we move on, just really quick, I wanted to give a shout out to my channel members. You guys, thank you so much for your support. I appreciate it and could not do this without you. If you're not a member, I'd appreciate it if you'd consider joining. There's a button down there that says join. You click on it and it will tell you the benefits that you can get by being a member. Access to the library of write-ups that I create for all of my builds so that you can recreate the build yourself a little more easily without having to go back and rewatch the video. Access to the D4 community Discord server filled with lots of wonderful and hilarious people. And access to the live monthly Q&A hangout sessions that we do. But if you don't want to or can't become a member, that's fine. Watching, liking, subscribing, clicking the notifications bell, these are also great ways to support the channel, so thanks for just doing those things. Okay, at level 2, Barbarians get Danger Sense, which says that we have advantage on dexterity saving throws unless we are incapacitated. Nice. But our favorite feature at this level, of course, is Reckless Attack, which says that when you make your first attack roll on your turn, you can decide to attack recklessly, which gives you advantage on all of your attacks using strength until your next turn. Yes, including reactions now, as we will be making lots of those with this build, actually. And this comes with the cost of giving enemies advantage on their attacks against you, which honestly, we don't mind so much here. We almost kind of want enemies to be attacking us, actually, not only because we have resistance to lots of damage and we're sort of a tank, so better us than our squishier allies, right? But also for our own offensive purposes, which we'll get into later. At level 3, we get Primal Knowledge, and this is a favorite new barbarian ability of mine in 2024, telling us that while we're raging, so you might be using up rages more regularly and outside of combat now, actually, you can use your strength for acrobatics, intimidation, perception, survival, and even stealth skill checks as you channel your inner primal power. But then we get our subclass here, and we are 100% going with the new and improved Berserker, the quintessential barbarian that was just honestly so bad in 2014. I still tried building around them, only twice, I think, in the original Crit Fisher and the Berserker Lurker, which was a little more fun and unique. Let's see what Wizards of the Coast has to say about them these days. Channel rage into violent fury. Barbarians who walk the path of the Berserker direct their rage primarily toward violence. Their path is one of untrammeled fury, ooh, that's a good word, and they thrill in the chaos of battle as they allow their rage to seize and empower them. Direct and to the point, just like Berserker Barbarians. But yeah, with Berserkers, you used to get a free bonus action attack when raging, thanks to their Frenzy ability, but it would give you a level of exhaustion, which made it all but unusable, at least maybe more than once a day. Now, Frenzy says that once per turn, we get to add some extra damage to the first target we hit with a strength-based attack while raging. The damage is equal to a number of d6s equal to our rage damage bonus. So 2d6 for now, which is really nice for an extra damage once per turn feature. Practically a free paladin smite every single turn. And that's a good thing, since you can no longer smite while raging anymore. Curse you, changes to divine smite. It's too bad that you can't choose when to do this damage. We've got a pretty solid crit chance, thanks to permanent advantage, and it would be cool to wait and see if you crit first, but hey, I'll take 2d6 more damage every turn, for sure. Importantly, we also get our third rage per day at this level, which, considering that we get one back on a short rest, means that we should rarely, if ever, not have a rage use available when a fight breaks out, at most tables anyways, unless you're using lots of rages outside of combat to be stealthy or intimidating. At level 4, we get our first general feat, and I'm gonna say let's take Sentinel here. This is such a solid feat. It lets us raise our strength by 1 to 18, and then says that when we hit an enemy with an opportunity attack, we reduce their move speed to 0. But then my favorite thing is that the feat also tells us that when an enemy within 5 feet of us either takes the disengage action or hits a target other than us, we can make an opportunity attack against them. So now the enemy is doubly incentivized to attack us instead of our friends. And again, that's generally a good thing for us and for our team, right? But it will be even better later. At level 5, we get fast movement, first of all, which gives us an extra 10 feet of speed when we are not wearing heavy armor, always appreciated. And then, of course, extra attack, so that when we take the attack action on our turn, we can attack twice instead of once. Many more d4s. But at level 6, now that we've got extra attack, I think it's time for a quick fighter detour. I said we were building around the DBS paired with great weapon fighting style, but alas, barbarians don't get fighting styles. But we can fix that with a quick dip here. As at fighter 1, we get a fighting style. So let's pick up great weapon fighting so that, yes, now when we roll the attacks with our DBS, any 1s or 2s on those d4s we're rolling are automatically 3s. Now, here's a question we should probably discuss. I might be stretching things a little far here, but I wanted to throw this in. The wording for this fighting style has changed in more ways than just numbers. The old wording for the fighting style was, when you roll a 1 or 2 on a damage die for an attack you make with a melee weapon that you are wielding with 2 hands, you can reroll the die and must use the new roll. They clarified in the old Sage Advice compendium that yes, they were specifically talking about weapon damage only here. So anything that added damage to the attack didn't also get to re-roll 1s and 2s. But the language in the new fighting style makes me wonder if that's still the case. It now says when you roll damage for an attack you make with a melee weapon that you are holding with 2 hands, you can treat any 1 or 2 on a damage die as a 3. This might just end up meaning the same thing. Probably does. But if so, I do wonder why they changed the wording at all. To me, when you roll damage for an attack you make with a melee weapon, seems like it might not mean the same thing as when you roll a 1 or a 2 on a damage die for an attack you make with a melee weapon, like it used to. The old language just seems like it's more specifically referring to the damage die or dice of the weapon itself. I'm not saying that we should assume this, right? At least not until Wizards of the Coast comes out and says it actually applies to any of the damage dice you might roll for the attack, not just the weapon, which they have not done. Just some food for thought. I would love to see this apply to more than just weapon damage, but even if it doesn't, it's going to add 1.5 damage on average to all of our attacks and 0.75 damage to our bonus action attack for an extra 4 damage per round about on average, maybe even a little bit more than that since it will benefit critical hits too. Unlike, say, the dueling feat, right? My favorite thing is that with Rage active and an 18 strength, our action attacks will do a minimum of 12 damage now if they hit. 3+3 for the weapon, 2 for Rage, and 4 for our strength. And our bonus action will be a guaranteed 9. So if we land all of our attacks on our turn, which we have a good chance of doing with advantage, it would be a minimum of 33 damage, even with crappy rolls. That's kind of awesome. And we also get Second Wind at Fighter 1, which lets us heal ourselves for a d10 10 plus our fighter level with a bonus action twice per day, recovering 1 more use per short rest, and then we get more weapon masteries. Yay! Boo! Nothing wrong with having options in case some crazy powerful magic weapon drops, right? Or maybe multiple magic weapons that nobody else happens to want. Anyways, at level 6, it's time for our first damage report. Before we get into tactics, I have a fairly important announcement to make about damage reports going forward. I have decided, after lots and lots of debating with myself about it, to finally start to report on numbers, not in necessarily a best case scenario with a single round of damage and then call that sustained damage, like once we're potentially firing on all cylinders if we have setup rounds, right? But to average what our damage would be over a 4-round combat encounter. I think it gives a much better, more accurate representation of what a build's actual damage might look like over the course of a fight. Up until now, I've always just kind of said, here's what our damage will look like after we've cast our spells or buffed ourselves, started raging, etc., right? And while that looks a lot better on paper, it just doesn't accurately represent what things generally look like in combat. Yeah, I know you guys know this, and some of you have been complaining about it for a while. But yeah, doing that also ends up making builds that take a round or two to ramp up because they're buffing themselves up somehow or debuffing an enemy look better than they might actually be in combat when compared to builds that can more easily just be firing on all cylinders earlier on, right? I've known this forever, but once I started feeling like I should maybe change the way I reported on numbers, I already had so many builds under my belt that going back and redoing the numbers for all of the old ones just felt like too monumental a task. Above all, I want to be able to compare these builds to one another in a true apples to apples fashion. When the 2024 rules first came out, I considered starting fresh and doing a 4-round average, but again, I wanted to compare the new 2024 builds to older 2014 builds to see how things stacked up, and felt like I couldn't change it until we had a better feel for, what the comparison looked like. Now that we're a few months in, I think I have a pretty decent feel for things, and so I've decided to pull the trigger and just start averaging numbers over 4 rounds before I get too many more builds, so I don't have to go back and spend weeks redoing them. I might spend that anyways. This will hopefully help me avoid doing too much setup round kind of stuff for builds, or at least keep me honest about the actual power of builds that do require more setup than others. I am not, however, going to assume a certain number of combat encounters or short rests per day. I just think that varies too much from table to table, and maybe even from adventuring day to adventuring day. I'd rather just keep things to what we can do over a single combat encounter, assuming we've got all of our resources, and let you guys adjust expectations based on how many encounters you tend to get into in a day at your table. Now, I haven't finished updating all of the 2024 builds yet with these new assumptions. I've got to go through and recrunch all of those numbers, but once I've finished, I will release a separate video kind of explaining what I've done and how the new system changes things for the 2024 builds I've done to date. Cool? Starting today, we'll do average damage over 4 rounds. So on round 1, we're going to rage first, then run up to our enemy and make 2 double-bladed scimitar attacks for 2d4 plus 2 for rage plus 4 for strength. Thereafter, we'll rinse and repeat, adding a bonus action attack thanks to the fact that we're using a DBS, with the only difference being that that attack is only 1d4, right? Don't forget, our first hit each round also adds 2d6 damage thanks to Frenzy. Now, the only question is, how often can we expect to get a reaction attack? I don't generally make assumptions if a regular opportunity attack is the only thing that would trigger one, but with the Sentinel feat, I think we should assume some kind of percentage at a reaction attack here. Is 25% too high? Maybe. If you're attacking recklessly and they're going to take a hit for attacking someone else, then an intelligent enemy, at least, might opt to attack you instead, and thus not trigger Sentinel. But what about dumb enemies? Or what if your ally is super squishy or is concentrating on a powerful spell? Or what if the enemy also knows that their attack isn't going to do all that much damage to you, even if it hits because you're a raging barbarian and you have a boatload of hit points? These things all depend a lot on the encounter and on your DM, but I have to pick a number, so let's say 25%. There's always a small chance at a regular old opportunity attack as well, right? Feel free to let me know in the comments if you think that I'm way off here. Under all of these assumptions then, against enemies with a 10 armor class, we would on average do 45 damage per round. And against a 15 AC, it would be 42 DPR. But remember, that's averaged over 4 rounds. So if we compare that to other 2024 sustained damage builds, we're kind of middle of the pack, which is great, but once I actually adjust all of those builds to average their damage over 4 rounds as well, we're going to look even better by comparison. Not insanely better, but I'd guess it'd be more like top half of the pack. Even compared to old 2014 builds, that's middle of tier 1 at this level, and there's just no way that I'm going back to adjust all of those, sorry. Anyways, we're in a good place. But that's not surprising, we're a barbarian. Barbarians are great at early level especially. Let's see how it scales, shall we? At level 7, I think we go back to Barbarian for a while. There are some nice features and a little scaling we can get with more Barbarian levels, so that would make us a Barbarian 6 here, which means as a Berserker, we get Mindless Rage, which says that we are immune to Charmed and Frightened while our rage is active. And if you're already Charmed or Frightened when you rage, those conditions end on you. That's kind of amazing. Not just for things we think of as explicitly charming or frightening us, but for spells like Hypnotic Pattern, right? Pretty dang good. Also, you get your 4th rage per day just in case you play at a table with lots of encounters between long rests. At level 8, we would be a Barbarian 7, and that means we get Feral Instinct, which just straight up gives us advantage on initiative rolls. That's pretty fantastic. And we also get Instinctive Pounce. That lets us move up to half our move speed when we rage as part of the same bonus action. It is rare that we won't be able to get within striking distance of an enemy now with 60 feet of speed on the turn that we rage, right? At level 9, we would be a Barbarian 8, and that means we get another feat, and in the name of just doing as much damage as possible, let's go ahead and bump our strength to 20 here, capping it. That brings us to our next damage report. That was quick. And since last check, the only thing we've really done to increase our damage is to cap our strength, though we've picked up some nice utility and defensive benefits as well. I'm also sure that you will have gotten yourself a much more powerful magic double-bladed scimitar since last check, but I can't know that for sure, so we'll have to settle for a minor bump to the numbers here. But now against enemies with a 10 armor class, we would on average do 47 damage per round, and against a 16 AC, it would be 44 DPR. And yeah, compared to last time, that's ouchie, that's hardly a bump. And here is unfortunately the cold hard truth. We would have been a lot better at our level 9 damage report if we would have just stayed Barbarian, because there are some really nice things coming in the next couple levels. But I mean, the whole point of this build was to try and pair the DBS with the new GWF style, right? It would have been weird to not even do that until character level 10 or 11. Anyways, it's too late now, no going back. Compared to 2024 builds here, we're near the bottom of the pack at this level, but not quite the bottom. We're still beating out the all-day build and the Soul Knife Rogue, and it's about to get a whole lot better. Because at level 10, we would be a Barbarian 9, and that means, first up, we get Brutal Strike, which is so much better than the old Brutal Critical. It says that if we're attacking recklessly, we can forego advantage on one attack on our turn, and as long as the attack doesn't have disadvantage, if it hits, we can add a d10 of damage and apply either a forceful blow to push the target 15 feet away from us, no saving throw, no size restriction, pretty awesome, and move up to half our move speed straight toward them without provoking opportunity attacks, or we can apply a hamstring blow, which slows the target by a whopping 15 feet until the start of our next turn. Now, we're not specifically building around either of these things, but there will be plenty of times when pushing or slowing an enemy will be super useful, and the extra damage is always appreciated, though giving up advantage to get it might not be worth it depending on the enemy armor class. I'll indicate in the spreadsheet, check the video description, at what armor class you should avoid giving up advantage for damage purposes at least, and it's gonna be pretty high, like into the 20s. So most of the time, you probably want to keep Brutal Strike on. Perhaps better even than Brutal Strike, perhaps. Our rage damage goes from 2 to 3 here, and while for most barbarians that's a fairly paltry increase in damage, for us it's more than twice as good, since it lets us add not only 1 extra damage to every hit, but an extra d6 of damage once per turn to our frenzied attack. But the ability that I'm most excited about in this tier of play is at level 11 Barbarian 10, Retaliation, which we get as a Berserker. This says that when we take damage from a creature that's within 5 feet of us, then we can make a reaction attack against them using a weapon or unarmed strike. Okay, so now we can get a reaction attack if they move away from us, if they attack anyone but us, or if they hit us or, even damage us with a spell. And as a recklessly attacking barbarian, surely that will happen almost every time they try to hit us, right? So I think this has got to increase our percentage chance at a reaction attack to like 75%. If we're standing next to an enemy, the only way we're not getting a reaction attack against them is if they attack us or someone else and miss on all of their attacks. Or, of course, if they do something other than attack, like cast a non-attack spell, right? That makes me want to get the Mage Slayer feat, actually. Anyways, I don't think 75% is too high here. Feel free to let me know if you disagree. Okay, at level 12, with retaliation under our belt, I think I'd like to go back to fighter here for a bit. There are some nice barbarian features at higher levels. There's some incentive to take a different class as well, but the damage really does plateau for barbarians for the most part, outside of a few features. I know it's not all about damage, and there's some nice non-damage barbarian features at higher levels, but there's some fairly low-hanging fruit in fighter that I would love to have. Plus, it really leans into kind of the character trope or concept that I was originally trying to build around. One of the best things that we get with more fighter levels, of course, right here at Fighter 2 is Action Surge, which would give us the ability to take an additional action on our turn once per short rest. And you know what? While that is, of course, awesome for burst damage, yeah, if I'm going to be doing averages over 4 rounds now, I'm going to go ahead and add this to the numbers. I know we only get to do it once per short rest, but at a lot of tables, you get a short rest after every combat, maybe 2, right? So, sure. Maybe we're still exploring best case scenario numbers here with my number crunching, but I don't mind that. I always use the highest level spell slots available for number crunching on spellcaster builds, and usually you only get 1 of those a day, depending on your level. So why not do the same here? Makes sense to me. I can't just ignore such a powerful feature, can I? No, I cannot. Fighters also get Tactical Mind at Fighter 2 now, which is just another way to use our second wind if we want. It says that when we fail an ability check, we can use second wind to roll a d10 and add it, potentially turning the failure into a success. Hooray for martial utility. Coupled with the Barbarian's Primal Knowledge, we're practically a skill monkey now. At level 13, we would be a Fighter 3, and that means we get our Fighter subclass, and I want to go Battle Master. And this really kind of excites me. Thematically, I love the idea of this raging, frenzied, out of control barbarian trying to focus their rage a bit. Channel that energy into trying to think more tactically. Why are they doing this? Maybe they accidentally hurt someone they loved while raging. Or maybe they just made a tactical blunder when they were attacking in a blind fury. Let an enemy escape. Couldn't solve an important puzzle. But now it's like in Endgame, when Banner figures out how to combine the best of both worlds, right? And make Smart Hulk.
I put the brains and the brawn together. And now look at me. Best of both worlds.
Okay, this happened in the comics long before Endgame, but anyways. Let's see what Wizards of the Coast has to say about Battle Masters in 2024. Master sophisticated battle maneuvers. Battle Masters are students of the art of battle, learning martial techniques passed down through generations. The most accomplished Battle Masters are well-rounded figures who combine their carefully honed combat skills with academic study in the fields of history, theory, and the arts. So refined. That is what we are now. Smart Hulk. Or maybe the Beast from Beauty and the Beast when Belle's trying to teach him to eat with utensils, right? This is character development, people. Okay, so as a Battle Master, first up, we get Student of War, which says that we have proficiency in an artisan's tool of our choice and a skill from the fighter list of skills of our choice as well. Smart Skill Monkey Hulk. Yes. But the main reason that we are here, of course, is for the combat superiority feature, which gives us 4 superiority dice to use per short rest. They're d8s, and we can choose 3 maneuvers from a lovely list to use those superiority dice on. The 3 I most want are Menacing Attack, which lets us add the superiority die in damage when we hit, and then force the enemy we hit to make a wisdom save against our strength-based DC, or be frightened of us until our next turn. Totally on point for a berserker, even a smart one. I'd also like to have Goading Attack here, as it works sort of like a soft taunt, letting you again add the superiority die in damage on a hit, and then debuff the enemy so that they have disadvantage on attacks they make against anyone but you, just in case your enemy needed another reason to attack you instead of your ally, and you really want to keep your ally safe and trigger an opportunity attack. But then finally, and perhaps most importantly, I want riposte here. This says that if an enemy attacks us with a melee attack but misses, then we get to make a reaction attack against them, adding the superiority die in damage. And I mean, this is just perfect for what we're trying to do, right? What's our percent chance of a reaction attack up to now? 90%? It's got to be around 90%, right? We get one if they move away, if they attack someone else, if they do damage to us, any damage, or if they try to hit us with a melee attack and miss. As long as we've got a superiority die, anyways. It's not 100% of the time, of course, but it's high. I'm saying 90. And this brings us to our next damage report. Since last check, we've seen a lot of nice bumps. Brutal Strike for an extra D10 of damage, potentially more rage damage, and a D6 frenzy bump. A greatly increased chance at a reaction attack thanks to both retaliation and riposte. An extra action thanks to Action Surge, which I'll assume we're using, and 4 lovely superiority dice to add damage to our attacks with as well, which sure, I'll assume that we've got 1 per turn to make use of when we riposte. I appreciate that this would deplete our resources if we used all of these things, but I want to know what we'd be capable of when we needed to pull out all the stops. Know that your numbers will be significantly lower if you don't want to or can't use all of these resources in an encounter, right? Anyways, versus enemies with a 10 armor class here, we would on average do 84 damage per round, and against a 17 AC, it would be 75. DPR. And that is more like it, comfortably back in the middle of the pack compared to other 2024 builds. And again, those ones need to be adjusted still. Though even after I adjust those upper tier ones, they're not going to come down so much that like this build will suddenly be cream of the crop or anything. But still, it's really good. And best of all, it's so dang consistent and beefy.
I smell like beef.
And even skillful. We are in our prime here at this level. So let's see what happens as we're coming down the home stretch. At level 14, I say we go back to Barbarian. We haven't given up our refined ways. We're just taking what we've learned and applying it to our Berserker ways. So this would make us a Barbarian 11. That means we get Relentless Rage. This is a great survivability feature. It says that while raging, if we drop to 0 hit points and don't die outright, we can make a DC 10 Constitution saving throw. We have a +9 to our con save, so that's a guaranteed success. And when we succeed, our hit points go to not 1, but twice our Barbarian level. Dang, I was almost dead. And you crit me for 100 hit points? No, you didn't. I actually healed. 22 hit points. Thanks for the crit. So great. Also, you can keep doing this, but the DC increases by 5 every time you succeed until you reset that DC with a short or long rest. So you are a lot harder to kill now. Awesome. At level 15, we'd be a Barbarian 12. That means we get another feat. And speaking of being hard to kill, honestly, yeah, I think if it were me, I'd probably just bump my Constitution here. I might take Resilient Wisdom, that might be the better play, but with immunity to fear and Charmed, I'm a little less concerned about my Wisdom saving throws. I guess we could do things like take the Charger feat or other like little ways out there to eke out just a point or 2 more of damage, but there's just not anything that's super impressive damage-wise at this point. I'd probably just as soon give myself another 15 hit points, which is more like 30 if we're raging, and increase my chance to keep making that Relentless Rage saving throw, honestly. Also, don't forget we get a 5th rage per long rest now as well. Okay, but at level 16, I want to go back to Fighter 4 to grab the feat that's just right there. This time, though, I'm not going to bump Constitution again. I mean, I could. I probably should. Why don't you go ahead and do that? But I am going to take a Revenant Blade. Wait, what? After all this time, you wait and you take it at level 16? What the crap? Yes, because Revenant Blade would increase my AC by 1 and give me an even dexterity score. So yeah, if you started with a 15 dex, it's finally an even number. But most important of all, this would let the double-bladed scimitar become a finesse weapon, which means that yes, at level 17, I could take a level in Rogue, granting me Thieves' Cant so that I can speak encoded messaging with others who can speak Thieves' Cant. I can get expertise to double my proficiency bonus in 2 skills that I'm proficient in. Go ahead and pick your favorites there. We're even more of a skill monkey than ever. And yes, so that we can get sneak attack, so that once per turn, not round, do an extra d6 of sneak attack damage so long as we have advantage on our target or attack someone standing next to one of our allies, and we're attacking with a ranged or finesse weapon. And since the double-bladed scimitar is a finesse weapon now, and we pretty much always have advantage, then yes, we can add sneak attack not only to the first of our attacks that land on our turn, but also on the reaction attack we're almost always making on an enemy's turn as well. Okay, if I was going to go this route, why not do it way earlier? Take fewer barbarian levels, maybe even skip fighter altogether, or maybe just after I get the fighting style, right? Honestly, the only reason I took a level in rogue here is because I hadn't done anything else since last damage report at level 13 to increase my damage, and I felt compelled to do something. But also, I think we get a little more out of fighter than rogue here for this build, honestly. When you combine action surge with all of the useful and potent battlemaster maneuvers, the damage for fighter levels really adds up. It is pretty close. If I hadn't just really loved the idea of making this character into a refined beast or the smart Hulk, right, I might have gone rogue sooner. But you have to get at least to barbarian 10 to get retaliation, since that's the thing that's really going to make sneak attack awesome, as it's going to greatly increase your chance of getting a reaction attack, right? So either way, it's a pretty late game play. I have barbarian rogue on my to-do list. I'm planning on doing a more thorough treatment of the combo before too long, but for this build, I don't mind throwing in a little dip at the end just to give us something damage-wise. If you would rather just go back to barbarian, knock yourself out, because yeah, I mean, improved brutal strike is nice, among other barbarian features that are coming in the next few levels. Anyways, this brings us to our final damage report. Since last check, outside of that sneak attack damage that we'll likely get twice per round, we've mostly improved our survivability. And hey, nothing wrong with that. An unconscious barbarian does 0 damage, and you're not gonna feel like a very smart Hulk if you keep getting knocked out, are you? But against enemies with a 10 armor class here, we would on average do 93 damage per round, and against an 18 AC, it would be 84 DPR. So yeah, a little bump to damage since last check, thanks really only to the proficiency bonus increase to our hit chance and the sneak attack damage. Let's break this down here with some final thoughts. The tier score for this build, if you average the damage that they do against every armor class at each of the 4 damage reports, average it all into one big number, we end up with a 57. Putting them even above the elemental monk from a few weeks ago. Do I have any cards left? There's the thumbnail. And monks got buffed, people. And I'm sure once I adjust that build to average the damage over 4 rounds, it'll probably look slightly worse. So how do you like that? DBS plus great weapon fighting style looking not too shabby here. Okay, but let's be real. The double-bladed scimitar still has problems. The built-in automatic bonus action attack is really nice, but it still can't take advantage of the Great Weapon Master feat. It also doesn't have any weapon masteries, officially, not yet. And it can't take advantage of the, combo of the Nick weapon mastery with the dual wielding feat to get one more attack on your turn, like those 2-weapon fighting builds can. So sure, if for these reasons you wanted to just grab a heavy weapon, grab the Great Weapon Master feat, and swing away, you could follow this build almost exactly, and it would work great. Sometimes better, depending on the level. In that case, I'd probably take the Great Weapon Master as my first feat, then maybe Sentinel, and then finally Polearm Master, swapping to a Glaive or Halberd in late game and getting my strength at 20, right? That said, because of the change to the Great Weapon fighting style, the double-bladed scimitar is better than ever, even if only by a bit. And I think more than that, it just feels a lot better than ever, Coupling it with rage to get guaranteed damage in the double digits every single hit, even at early levels, no matter what you roll on those damage dice, plus guaranteed advantage to make sure you hit almost every swing, just makes the damage super reliable. But then later, finding lots of fun ways to get ourselves a reaction attack almost every round, and combining it all with lots of fun and potent Battlemaster maneuvers, not to mention barbarian and fighter buffs, plus some fun utility and skill monkiness. This build has a ton of character and flavor. Plenty of utility, lots of survivability, and hits really hard. They make a great frontliner. They're pretty tanky. I would love to play this build in-game sometime, and I hope you would too. But whether you do or not, that's the build for the week, so I hope you enjoyed it. I love you guys. Thank you so much for all that you do for me, for the channel. It really means a lot to me. I hope you have a fantastic day and a really great week. And if you don't, I hope you'll hang in there. Hard times are hard. They don't last forever, but I think they're important. So move towards that hard and push through. I hope you have a fantastic day and a really great week, and that I see you again really soon. But until then, take care. Bye. I waited till I saw the sun. I don't know why I didn't come. I don't know why I didn't come. My heart is drenched in wine. You'll be on my mind forever. Love me some Norah Jones. I just got back from a trip to Knoxville. My son, Knox, I've wanted to take him to Knoxville since he was born. And his girlfriend lived there for a while, so I was like, you know what? Let's just go. And it's the fall, and I'm driving around in the Smoky Mountains and going to Dollywood, which is amazing, by the way. Like, best amusement park ever. And somebody made a comment on one of my videos, and I can't remember, I don't have it in front of me, but they were like, I just saw you at Dollywood. I'm like, that's so awesome. And I wish that they would have said hi, whoever you were. I wish you would have said hi, but I'm sure I was probably like on the other side of whatever, and there's people. And anyways, where was I going with all this? Norah Jones. I was listening to Norah Jones a lot on that trip, and the vibe was perfect. Like driving around through the Smokies, all those colors, just a little bluesy, a little mellow. I mean, you know, I had to listen to like some bluegrass and stuff too, the Nickel Creek and the Waylon Jennings, the folky stuff. But yeah, something about Norah Jones was just hitting perfectly on that trip. Oh, and I got this shirt. This was my souvenir. Not all who wander are lost. You can see at the bottom. Everything is in orange, of course, because University of Tennessee, go Vols. Wait a minute, Vols? Vols. I mean, it's the Volunteers. Do they say Vols or Vols? Obviously, I'm not a big fan. I've said Vols, but Vols are also like a small mouse-like rodent that have infested my yard this summer. Anyways, I have no idea what I was even talking about anymore. Oh, but cool shirt. Not all who wander are lost is actually from The Lord of the Rings. I think that's the only place that I know of that quote coming from. So I'm not really sure what the tie is to Knoxville, Tennessee. Maybe Dolly Parton put it in a song or something. But I think it's just like you're in the mountains, Appalachia, wandering. There's a little bit of a hippie vibe going. But I just loved it because it was orange and it reminded me of Lord of the Rings. And it has a bunch of mushrooms on it for some reason. So mushrooms are cool. I'm going to knock my teleprompter off if I do this. Don't fall. Did that work? Was that too much? Oh, that was too much. Dang it. Go back. There we go. Now we're slightly crooked. This is going to fall. Don't fall. Whew. And this is a... Okay. And this... Hold, please. Okay, sorry. I guess I could have paused the recording there. Had some clinking. Lots of clinking. Level 3. Start that. It actually applies to the damaged dice you might roll for the... It actually applies to the damaged dice you might... Because at level 10, we would be a barbarian. A barbarian burp.